Iran, Kristi, Noem, and elections. All that and more today on The Nathan Hale Show. Well, folks, we are back. Today is March 6th, 2026, 3/6/26. We've had a few of those this year. I feel like we had 2/26/26. Now we have 3/6/26. The dates are really rolling off the tongue. And boy, do I just say, this year is flying by. I cannot believe it's already March 6th. Can you believe it? I can't believe it either, folks. We have so much to talk about today, so much to cover. Lots have happened since last week, and I hope you're ready for it because I got a lot to talk about. So before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel as well as our Rumble and X accounts. Those are all scrolling across the bottom of the screen there. This show streams out every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And yeah, we're pushing ahead. We've got news to cover every single week, and I cannot wait until election night 2026. I'm so excited to cover it. This year is going to be crazy, regardless of what happens then. But we already have some shakeups happening with elections, anyways, which we'll get into later in the show. But let's go and start with what the heck is going on in Iran. So Trump vows no peace with Iran before unconditional surrender. So if you didn't hear, over the past few days, the U.S. has been doing some intervening in Iran. They took out the Ayatollah leader, who, by all intents and purposes, this was a great move for world peace, right? Step in the right direction, if I do say so myself. We took out a terrorist. We took out a terrorist. We took out. We are preventing a country that is trying to get nukes as much as it can to not have those. So let's go and read through the story. So President Trump issued a warning on what's left of the Iranian government on Truth Social Friday, writing, quote, "There will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender. After that, and the selection of a great and acceptable leader, we and many of our wonderful and very brave allies and partners will work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction, making it economically bigger, better, and stronger than ever before," he went on. "Iran will have a great future. Make Iran great again. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Trump demanded Tehran's surrender a day after also insisting on a direct role in picking the successor to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei? Question mark? You guys know I can't pronounce names on this show. You know, I'm not going to say that I'm as bad as Candace Owens when it comes to pronouncing words just in general, but I'm just as bad as her when it comes to being able to pronounce names. So who was killed in the initial wave of U.S.-Israeli attacks on Saturday? So the president went on to say that he would not insist on Iran becoming a democracy, telling Dana Bash on CNN, quote, there has to be a leader that's going to be fair and just, do a great job, treat the United States and Israel well, and treat the other countries in the Middle East. They're all our partners. Iran is currently under the control of a three-man council led by two regime headliners, in addition to the country's president, Masoud Pezeshkian. Trump has spoken repeatedly this week about Venezuela's recent leadership change being an ideal mode for Iran after U.S. commandos captured socialist strongman Nicolas Maduro on January 3rd, and the White House subsequently elevated the more pliable VP Delcy Rodriguez, who has agreed to Trump's demands to free political prisoners and work with U.S. oil companies. So, quite the interesting move that has occurred in Iran. You know, I'll tell you, folks, I always have this slight hesitation when I hear about the U.S. getting involved in any foreign conflicts. However, my mind has been very much put at ease because over these past several attacks that have happened from the Trump administration on Iran, on Venezuela, on other countries out there, and the lack of loss of life because of those, at least from the U.S. side, has moved me towards supporting what the president is doing. I believe the president knows what he's doing on this front, and I support it. Now, when it comes to actually doing an all-out invasion of a country and putting U.S. lives at risk at mass to try and democratize the country, which the president literally said he's not trying to do, that's when I started to take umbrage to those issues and want to see a little bit of pushback from it. So Congress, for their part, is wanting to have some pushback against Trump. So the House votes to let Trump's Operation Epic Fury continue in Iran. So we're constantly hearing, right, whenever Trump does one of these actions, that he didn't get approval from Congress, right? Congress didn't approve, right? Congress was not consulted. I think there's a time and a place for consulting Congress. I think there is an amount of, how would you say, I'm searching for the right word here, but an amount of discretion that the president has as commander-in-chief to direct the U.S. military to go and carry out these directed operations against literal terrorists and warlords in our world, and a role that Congress plays when it actually comes to, initializing a war to take place, right? It's my belief that there is a difference between what Trump has done up to this point with foreign conflicts and an all-out war. I also like to remind all the skeptics out there that actually Congress has not declared war on another country since World War II. Vietnam did not get congressional approval. The Korean War did not get congressional approval. Heck, the war on terror under George Bush did not get congressional approval in the way that Congress is suggesting it needs to get, right? The last time that Congress actually enacted a war, quote unquote, how these congressmen who we're going to read about would like to say that we need to do for everything, was in fact World War II. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that that was the correct move, or they shouldn't have done that for other conflicts that occurred. It's my belief that Congress should be in on it if we're sending mass American troops out to go fight in wars. That's my feeling. When it comes to attacks on Iran, like we've seen, on Venezuela, I really don't think that they need to be consulted. And frankly, if they were consulted, we had to sit on our hands and wait for their approval, we might miss that window of opportunity we had to take these leaders out or to capture them, right? It's very likely that the night that the United States captured Nicolas Maduro, the night that the Ayatollah was taken out, that was a window of opportunity that was very limited in scope for the U.S. military to go and complete that action. And had Congress been consulted, it's possible that information could have leaked, or we could have missed the opportunity, and it could have been a lot more dangerous for U.S. service members going in there and doing that. So anyways, let's read what some congressmen have to say. So the House votes, they actually voted to allow the administration to continue to do these actions. So actually, Congress does approve of the actions of the Trump administration. As far as we're concerned, right, they voted in favor to allow Trump to continue on. So the House of Representatives narrowly voted to allow President Donald Trump to continue Operation Epic Fury in Iran on Thursday. A bipartisan resolution led by Representatives Thomas Massie from Kentucky and Ro Khanna, California, failed to pass after 4 Democrats joined most Republicans in sinking it 212 to 219. So yeah, it was a narrow margin, but all you need to get something passed in Congress is a majority. So I frankly don't care if the majority was 70% or 51%. Either way, it passed, right? It doesn't matter at that point. So the legislation was aimed at blocking Trump from using the armed forces in the joint U.S.-Israel operation in Iran, which would likely force the strikes to grind to a halt. The Trump administration, as well as the majority of Republicans in Congress, have insisted that the president has acted within his authority so far, as are hopeful he will continue to do. But Democrats, along with Massie and Representative Warren Davidson, who are both Republicans, by the way, are largely skeptical. Both Republicans voted in favor of the measure. The Democrats who voted against reining in Trump's war powers include Representative Jared Golden, Henry Culler, and Greg Landsman, all Democrats from Maine, Texas, and Ohio, respectively. Quote, the Ayatollah was not a president. He was a religious leader from a region notorious for radical Islamists, and the United States and Israel turned him into a martyr, Massey said during debate on the resolution. If Congress wants war, then the Speaker should hold a vote to declare it, Davidson said Wednesday. The moral hazard posed by a government no longer constrained by our Constitution is a grave threat. Now, the idea that Trump is not actually following the Constitution in this setting, I think, is frankly laughable. Like I said, there's been so many other conflicts that have been carried out that Congress was not necessarily consulted on to give approval of war over it. I mean, the entirety of the Obama administration, this was going on. I mean, this happened all over the place. This is nothing new that Trump is doing by using the military with his role as commander-in-chief. That's, by the way, granted to him in the Constitution. It says that the president is the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military to go and conduct these actions. So as I was saying, I feel like getting approval of Congress in a mass capacity like this, which, by the way, the president just did with this legislation that was passed, I don't think it's necessary until there's an actual mass invasion into a country that concerns U.S. service members. I wouldn't even be upset if there was a war that was taking place that was using drones. My entire contention over having congressional approval over a war, honestly, mostly revolves around the actual lives of U.S. service members. That's where my main concern is, not necessarily with how the Constitution says that the president needs to be going about things like this. I am most concerned with Americans who are putting their lives on the line to fight for their country and having them potentially get killed or have a limb blown off of them for going and fighting in a war that was not a that the U.S. people were not consulted on. The people being the House of Representatives and Congress as a whole. So. It's with that sense that I would like to see Congress approve of a war taking place. I feel like I made my point clear with that. You all understand, right? You got it. If it's unclear, tweet at me. I'll enlighten you. So only Senator Rand Paul voted in favor of the resolution among Republicans, while Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat who's from Pennsylvania, was the lone Democrat to cross the aisle in support. I've got to say, guys, John Fetterman being the only rational Democrat in Congress was not on my 2025 nor 2026 bingo cards. I'm honestly surprised. I remember when this guy was running, I thought he was going to be a nutbag. I saw him running for a Senate office wearing a frickin' hoodie and shorts on stage, acting like a slob. And I thought he was going to be a complete nutbag. Now, is John Fetterman still a nutbag on some things? Absolutely, because he's a Democrat. And the Democrat Party just has nutbag policies when it comes to certain issues. But when it comes to, honestly, some things, such as national security, John Fetterman is actually kind of reasonable when it comes to stuff like that. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the stroke. I don't know if it was something else. But Pennsylvania, I fear that you have kind of an okay senator in John Fetterman. I've heard a lot of people say they should become a Republican. I don't want him to become a Republican. I want him to continue to be the beacon of hope for Democrats. Honestly, they need it. So there was a comment that was made about the Ayatollah just being a religious leader. Just because that might in fact be true, does not mean that he is just he's like the Pope, right? I feel like that comment was there to downplay the actual role that the Ayatollah has played in Iranian politics. I mean, this is a man who has suppressed protests, killed political rivals, and prosecuted religious and ethnic minorities in the country. This man, right, who was taken out. I think that it was an overall win for world peace and for human rights, honestly, as a whole, that this guy is no longer here with us. And I hope that Iran comes to their senses and can become a nice country again. It used to be a nice country. It used to be a beautiful place. And now it's just gone to crap. So I feel very happy that the president has said that he's not trying to push democracy down their throat. So here's the thing, folks. We here in the West love democracy, right? But in countries like Iran, they don't have the same Western values like we do, right? We have a certain value system that we appreciate, which is also why when people come over here who do not have Western values, it erodes our traditions and our country as a whole when people don't assimilate into our values and our culture. That being said, a democracy is not for everyone. If Iran functions better under having these more dictatorial leaders in charge, um, you know what? Good for them. But there's a difference between having dictatorial leaders who are literally oppressing populations and trying to get nuclear weapons to then bomb us with, or not doing that. So I'm totally in favor of this. I'm perfectly happy with it. I also think what's really not being said here that is the big defining thing is we have an incentive to not allow Iran to come to power and gain nuclear arms. Here's the thing: if Iran gets nuclear weapons, like 100 other countries in the world also get nuclear weapons because they're friends with all of them. They're friends with all of our adversaries. They're all going to get them. It's kind of amazing that they haven't gotten anything, frankly, from China or Russia yet. Also, our adversaries, probably because China and Russia are like, these people are freaking nuts. There's no way we're giving them anything. But we have an incentive to stop countries from doing that because here's the thing. As long as there is a small amount of countries that have nuclear arms in the world, it makes it a whole lot easier to negotiate with them, right? When there's only 5 or 6 countries that have nuclear arms around the world, it's not as big of an existential threat to us as Americans. Versus if 100 countries have them around the world, it's no different than just having a machine gun, right? Every country has those. So it's important that we keep that to as few people as possible and as many Western countries as we can that we as Americans are allied with. I mean, we had the opportunity to keep North Korea from getting nuclear weapons, and we didn't follow through with that. So I'm happy to see some actual follow through happening with Iran. So let's continue on. So Kristi Noem is back in the news, guys. Kristi Noem has been around a lot recently. You know, my general feeling when it comes to cabinet secretaries is when I'm not hearing their names, I feel like they're doing a good job, right? For example, Sean Duffy's the transportation secretary. You never hear his name until there's like a major transportation disaster happening in the world, or in the United States particularly. I haven't heard his name recently, right? I haven't been hearing a whole lot from Tulsi Gabbard. I haven't been hearing a whole lot from Linda McMahon. The only one that I've really heard a lot from, frankly, has been Kristi Noem. She's been getting out there. She's like wanting to get her name in the news, which I don't like to see, because if her name's in the news, it means something controversial happened. And finally, she broke the camel's back. She was the straw that broke the camel's back. She led to her own demise. So Trump fires Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem. So Donald Trump on Thursday announced he was replacing Kristi Noem as the Homeland Security Secretary, capping weeks of bipartisan complaints about her leadership after immigration agents killed 2 U.S. citizens and reports emerged that she was involved in a personal relationship with a top deputy. By the way, she's married, guys. Noem's firing was the first major potential shakeup of Trump's second term. The president made it public in a post on Truth Social in which he said Markwayne Mullin, a Republican Oklahoma senator, would take over from Noem starting on March 31st. So Kristi Noem is going to be remaining within the administration. She's just getting moved to become the special envoy to the Shields of Americas. What the heck the Shields of America is, I have no idea. But clearly Trump feels it's a place that Kristi Noem won't do a whole lot of damage, right? You remember how Carrie Lake, loser after loser after loser, Carrie Lake is now the head of the Voice of America or something like that. Right? Trump moved her there because he feels like she can't do any more damage over there. And when's the last time you've heard from Kari Lake, folks? Crickets, right? Crickets in the back. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. She ran for 2 elections, lost both times royally because she was way too right for Arizona at the time. Anyways, so a Republican former congresswoman and governor of South Dakota, Noem, was considered a potential running mate for Trump as he sought re-election in 2024, but ultimately passed over after she admitted in a memoir to killing a dog she owned. Lovely Kristi Noem. Now, I remember when this came out, I think I said on the show that she will never have a political career ever again. And I was honestly surprised that she was tapped to become Homeland Security Secretary after the whole controversy. Here's the thing, Americans like their doggies. And I like my doggies. I like my kitty cats, right? I like my house animals. And I have a hard time following along with someone who just takes one out, regardless of what the reason is for it. Like, let's be so honest for a second, folks. Let's just say Kristi Noem did in fact have a genuinely good reason for taking out her dog in her memoir. Why the heck would you include that? That's just not anything that anyone's ever going to be like, oh, you know, that was really the right thing for Kristi Noem to have done, right, guys? Politics doesn't work like that. So why it was even included in her memoir, wild stuff. Wild stuff. So anyways, Noem became a public face of the crackdown, which ensnared immigrants with documentation and without, as well as U.S. citizens, appearing regularly on conservative television networks, as well as in promotional materials on DHS social media accounts. That's right, folks. She is the one and only deportation Barbie. After federal agents deployed to Minnesota killed Renee Good, and then weeks later, Alex Peretti, Noem accused both U.S. citizens of being involved in domestic terrorism. My God. But the allegations appeared to fly in the face of what was known about Bolt's participation in anti-ICE protests. Absolutely, absolutely. The idea that Alex Peretti and Renee Good were at all domestic terrorists, I think is wild. Calling someone a domestic terrorist basically insinuates that they were out to kill law enforcement, kill American citizens. Their intent was to murder. When in reality, that does not appear to be the case. I've seen both the videos of these individuals. I don't believe that's the case at all. I'm of the belief that the shooting of both of these individuals was lawful from law enforcement's point of view, but the notion that they were at all terrorists, domestic terrorists in any way, I think is crazy. Were these people kind of nuts to be shown up to a protest and putting themselves between law enforcement agents and their job? Yeah, they were. Were their actions worth getting shot over? Possibly. We'll see what the court cases for these two individuals hold. I feel like it's lawful, but we'll see what the courts decide. But either way, I wouldn't say that they're domestic terrorists. I mean, Renee Good didn't drive into a crowd of people trying to run them over their car. I mean, she appears to have been kind of driving at one agent, but then also kind of steering away. It's it's iffy, right? It's iffy. But I think it's crazy territory to call them domestic terrorists. So even some Republicans signaled concerns with her leadership, with Louisiana Senator John Kennedy questioning why the DHS gave $220 million to a firm linked to Noem's former spokesperson to produce advertisements in which the secretary was featured prominently. Folks, I thought we were trying to cut waste, fraud, and abuse within the government, not go and spend $220 million on TV ads. Why? So many questions, not enough answers. See you, Kristi Noem. I don't want to hear any more about deportation Barbie. I was skeptical. Even saying the whole dog murder thing aside, I was skeptical of Kristi Noem. Here's the thing. The Trump administration has perpetrated or has promoted the mass deportation of illegals in the United States as being like their top goal from the administration. I mean, Trump ran on this platform for a long time. I mean, for all the 2024 campaign, this was like his main thing. Like, finish building the wall, deport all the illegals, clean our country out, basically, right? And this is the woman that he chose to execute that mission. I don't think that she was qualified to go out and do it. Maybe had Kristi Noem not been, frankly, kind of a narcissist, in my opinion, she would have done a better job. But I'm seeing pictures of her coming out where she's standing next to ICE agents holding a rifle up towards one of the guys' heads. I'm seeing videos of her coming out where she's standing in front of El Salvadorian prisons, saying that we're going to be sending criminals down there. I'm seeing these stage photo ops of her. I'm seeing TV commercials that are coming out of her riding a horse, promoting Homeland Security. It basically is a campaign ad when you look at it. It almost feels to me that Kristi Noem wants to run for president, and she turned her role as DHS secretary into her launch pad into 2028. That's what I feel like actually has in fact happened with her, and it's possible that Trump knows this as well. As like, we have to shut this down, right? This is not happening. I'm the president of the United States. I say what goes on, and you cannot be using your office to basically launch your presidential campaign out of, right? It's unethical. So, yeah, I'm totally in favor of this. This is an issue that was overall winning with Americans, but because of Kristi Noem's actions has completely changed in the minds of many of Americans. This is the single issue that honestly is tanking Republicans' chances right now of winning in 2026 in November. So here's the thing, folks. You and I might be very pro having these deportations happen in our country. You and I might be very pro the actions of DHS happening recently. That's not to say that all Americans are, and that Americans who are not informed, which is by and large the vast majority of them, who just turn on the TV and see ugly pictures on their TV screen of kids getting hauled away by Homeland Security, that's not going to change their opinions, right? I mean, there's narratives out there, the media is spinning about so many cases that have happened with deportations that people so easily grab onto. And unless you really understand what's going on, which most people don't, you don't realize it's all fabricated and it's fake, right? Anyways. Markwayne Mullin from Oklahoma, I have seen posts of people saying, what's going to happen to the Republican majority in the Senate when he becomes the new secretary of DHS? Now, what's going to happen to him? Oh my gosh, right? What's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen to the Republican majority in the Senate. What's going to happen is the Senate basically appoints a replacement for Markwayne Mullin. Until his term is up. It should be noted his term is up in November. So he was going to be running for re-election anyways. Probably this guy wanted a career change, and he was like, I'd be happy to take the job if there's a job out there for it. So basically a appointed senator will be around for about, till January of 2027, possibly longer if they win their upcoming election. It's possible that whoever is appointed won't even be running in the election. We'll just have to see. So nothing is going to happen to the Republican majority in the Senate because of this decision. It should be noted this is not how House elections work, where when you pull a member out of the House of Representatives, the governor of the state they're from does not appoint a replacement. They hold a special election to elect a new representative to fulfill the rest of that term. Just different things that happen in the Senate and the House. It kind of goes back to the roots that the Senate has, where senators used to be entirely appointed by state houses until a congressional amendment was passed that pushed it over to having it directly elected by the people. So go and do some research on that if you're interested. But wave goodbye to deportation Barbie. You will not see her again. I don't know what the heck is going on with her relationships with Corey Lewandowski. They're both married people. This is the first I'm hearing of this from this article. But she's riding out on a prayer, let me tell you. So I want to turn over now to some other elections, right? We've been talking about elections coming up in the United States, especially in 2026, but there's also other elections happening. There's an election happening for the governor of Florida. Ron DeSantis is term limited. He will be leaving in January. We still have no idea who he's going to be endorsing for his replacement. He's not made any announcement of that. We have no idea what he's going to be doing after he leaves office. All we know right now is that he's just basically a sitting duck, finishing out the rest of his term, keeping Florida great. I have a lot of incentive to talk about Florida and cover what is happening in Florida. Because one, I think that Florida right now is the model for what every single Republican state should in fact be doing. Florida was once a purple state. Under the leadership of Ron DeSantis, it changed from a basically 50-50 tie state up until about 2016 to now Republicans are winning in that state by 15 to 20 points, right? It's a solid red state at this point. I mean, Ron DeSantis won his re-election bid. I think he was up 20 points against not Kristi. I'm thinking of New Jersey. Charlie Kirst? Not Charlie Kirst. I can't remember what his name is. I'm losing. He was such a forgettable candidate. I can't even remember what his name was, right? Anyways, it's not relevant. He won 20 points against the Democrat in that race. So I'm interested to see what is going to happen going forward in the state of Florida. Right? Are they going to continue to have good leadership, or are they going to go back to more establishment Republican ways and kind of keep the status quo? Right? I hope that they choose to continue the legacy that Ron DeSantis is leaving them. Ron DeSantis is leaving the next governor of this state a perfect state. He's leaving them a state that has balanced budgets, a state that has humongous transportation projects happening, a state that has fought back against corporate greed, a state that has lowered taxes, a state that has made it easier to be a working family in Florida. I mean, above all, he's leaving them a state that has such a strong Republican majority. Truly an idiot would have to screw it up. But as we know, politicians like to be idiots a lot of the time, frankly. And it's a hard line to toe to not be an idiot politically. So actually, I gotta switch my hat for this segment, folks. Get the Ron DeSantis 2024 hat on. I'm not afraid. I'm not ashamed to wear it. I voted for the man in 2024. I'm perfectly happy to say that I did. I supported his campaign. Not afraid to say it. Big fan of Ron DeSantis. If Ron DeSantis never becomes president of the United States, it will be one of the single greatest losses in political talent the United States has ever seen. That's all I gotta say about DeSantis. So, I saw this post on Twitter. So there are a smorgasbord of candidates running for this position. Jay Collins, who is the current sitting lieutenant governor of Florida, he's running. Of all the candidates running right now, he'd probably be my top pick. He's the guy who's worked most closely with DeSantis over the years. I mean, he was only appointed back in August of 2025, so not that long ago, but I mean, he's worked closer with DeSantis than any of these other politicians have. Also, Byron Donalds, former representative of the state of Florida, kind of from the Panhandle region, I believe. Kind of up closer to like where Louisiana is. So Byron Donalds is running. Not that big of a fan of Byron Donalds, to be perfectly honest with you. James Fishback is running. We have some things to say about James Fishback as well. He is a colorful character when it comes to the Republican primaries. I don't think he's got a shot. He's pulling at 3% right now, guys. He's got no shot. So I saw this post from an ex-user going by the name Reverend John Wells that was getting some attention. And it just kind of, it popped out at me for just, frankly, kind of how crazy it is. So he writes, I'm going to read you the full post and we'll discuss. The Republican Party has a racism problem in a small but loud corner, and we must purge it now. When candidates like James Fishback keep getting platformed while hurling racist attacks at Byron Donalds, calling him a token black, a slave to donors, or saying he'll turn Florida into Section 8 ghetto, and Nick Fuentes, who said vile racist things about people of color, still polls 10% support in some circles. We have a race issue. A tiny minority is poisoning the wells. I'm calling it out because I work for God, not clicks or clout. It's sad that other black Republicans and conservatives feel this way too. Merit-based diversity is a strength. I've been the only minority in Republican meetings. My wife felt uncomfortable at first, but under Trump, the party has become more diverse. That's progress. We should celebrate. Byron Donalds as Florida's next governor? He'd be the first conservative black governor in over a century. That's something every Republican should be proud of, not tear down with racist smears. We reject white nationalism, anti-Semitism, and hate, period. The GOP wins when it's built on ideas, character, and opportunity for all, not division. Purge the poison, build the future. Here's the thing. I think a lot of people are looking at people not supporting Byron Donalds as somehow being racist. I don't have an issue with Byron Donalds because he's black. I have an issue with Byron Donalds because, frankly, I don't think he'd make a good governor of Florida. I have an issue with James Fishback. I have an issue with Byron Donalds. I have an issue with all the other candidates running in this election, frankly, other than Jay Collins, because they weren't a part of the leadership that has made Florida great. They weren't a part of Ron DeSantis's leadership team that turned Florida into this huge beacon of conservative politics that frankly should be the case study for every other Republican state in the country, right? That's why I have an issue with these candidates. It has nothing to do with Byron Donalds being black. I could care less about that. Anyone who follows me online recognizes that. I do think it's funny, though, that this post says that we should be, the GOP wins when it's about ideas, characters, and opportunity, when a sentence before he's talking about, not that Byron Donalds should be would be a great governor because of these policy positions, but because he would be the first conservative black governor in over a century, right? That's not an idea that is built on ideas, characters, or opportunity. That's an idea that's actually built on diversity right there, which we should in fact be against, right? We should be pro-electing the best individual for that job, not someone just because they'd be the first black, conservative governor in over a century. I don't care about that. I don't care if they're Asian. I don't care if they're a woman. I could care less, right? So do the voters of Florida, by the way, who, by all available polling, shows that about 50% of them are undecided on who they're voting for in November for the governor's office. Honestly, because Ron DeSantis has not made an endorsement. I guarantee you that once that endorsement is made, that 50% is going to get cut down to like 10% overnight, because most of the people in that state who are Republicans are listening to DeSantis. They're Republicans because of DeSantis. DeSantis has turned so many, not nonpartisan or Democrats or non-politically affiliated voters into Republicans because of his leadership in the state. I do agree with this post that we should be standing up against racism. We should be standing up against calling our other candidates slaves to donors. That's insane, right? How crazy to say that you're a slave to a donor, to a literal black man. Wild stuff right there from James Fishback. But James Fishback is a crazy candidate as is. We'll get into that in just a moment. So overall, some crazy stuff happening. I also feel like, it is something that needs to be called out. People like Nick Fuentes deserve the hate that they are getting for their positions. However, this idea that, honestly, it's even 10% of the GOP, I think is kind of crazy. I think it's a much smaller percent of that. And we'll get into that in just a moment. So the crazy circles, the James Fishbacks, the Nick Fuenteses, the Valentina Gomez's, we'll get into her in just a moment, She's in the news again, guys. Not for a good reason though. Um, they're all in the same circle, and they're getting so little of the vote. They're getting like 3% of the vote. They're getting so little attention that I really don't feel like it's fair to put this on a huge scale. And honestly, the more we talk about the Nick Fuentes types, the more attention they're going to get. So honestly, I would rather us just ignore those individuals and stop giving them so much attention, because every time we talk about them, it gets people interested in who these individuals are, and people want to go and look them up, right? People want to go give them attention then and see really what's going on. I'd rather not give them any power. Us talking about them gives them power in one way or another, right? Haven't you ever heard there's no such thing as bad publicity? It's that exact reason, right? As long as you're talking about a bad thing, it's getting attention. As long as it's getting attention, it's getting power. So that's why I frankly don't talk about that much. And also, it's not a mass thing that's happening on a scale in the GOP. It's this perspective that has been pushed that the Republican Party is somehow super homophobic. It's not. It's this perspective that the Republican Party is somehow super racist. It's also not. It's the perspective that Republicans hate minorities. They don't. It's this perspective that Republicans, don't want everything to be fair and equal. I mean, it's the Democratic Party who's most pushing the racial minority issue. Anyways, we should be calling it out way more on the left, because those are people who are actually having proponents of it who are in elected offices, right? We don't have people in elected offices right now in the United States who are saying stuff like this, right? Who are saying that their rivals are slaves to donors, right? Things like this. Until that happens, I'm not really concerned. So we got to talk about James Fishback. So I want to cover this. So I don't like James Fishback at all. He has allegations of having inappropriate relationship with minors. This is a whole thing that's come out. I knew, I made a tweet that came out right around the time he was starting to get attention and everything. I was like, I know there's something with this guy. There is something fishy with him. I don't know what it is. I get a bad vibe off of this guy. And I was right, because like 2 or 3 days later, this whole story about him being in a relationship with, I think, like a 16-year-old when he was like 28 came out, which is wild. He's banned from all Florida Waffle Houses. I don't know, you base your voting decisions off of bans from Waffle Houses or not, but if I did, I certainly wouldn't be voting for James Fishback. And he also has proposed a 50% sin tax on OnlyFans earnings to combat degeneracy. I don't like degeneracy either, folks. However, putting a 50% tax on something and calling it a sin tax, I think is crazy. I think it's absolutely a wild thing. I think there's so many better options you could do if you want to combat people being addicted to pornography in the United States than putting a 50% tax on it. Anyways, I don't even know how that would work. So, also, I'm not a big fan of Byron Donalds. One, not because he's black, but because he didn't disclose $1.5 million to over 100 stock trades that he did while he was in Congress. This guy is getting rich off of being a congressman. He's doing the same thing Nancy Pelosi's doing, right? He was also nowhere to be seen when Hurricane Ian happened, where that was like affecting his district. Like, come on, guy. Like, what's going on? I don't feel like he'd do a good job. I feel in my heart of hearts, and I highly suggest that you support Jay Collins, who is at least working inside the administration, has been working inside the administration alongside Governor DeSantis since August. So you can go research the guy some more. I think he's a perfectly reasonable person. Anyways. So something else has happened. I'd like to bring to your attention the individual of Valentina Gomez. So Valentina Gomez, she's an interesting sort. Valentina ran to take over John Carter's House seat in Texas this past primary cycle. She only got 10% of the vote. She barely beat out no picture candidate who is on there. She got 8,400 votes. Good for her. This really speaks to me, though, of how the internet and real life are not, in fact, the same things at all. So Valentina has like 1 million followers on social media accounts, right? She's got a ton of followers on Instagram, a ton of followers on Twitter and all the accounts. She makes these flashy videos that get millions of views, hundreds of thousands of views here and there, right? It's all for clout, right? And the getting attention online does not equate to doing well in the polls at all. It's just entirely different things. And people know when you're not being genuine. Valentina is a freaking crazy person, and there's no way she was going to win this election. So Valentina previously ran for Secretary of State here in the great state of Missouri. She lost. I think she did a little bit better in this election. I think she only got around 7 or 8% of the primary vote in that election. I think she came in like 3rd or 4th place. So she did a little bit better in this one. Still lost though. And basically she lost in Missouri, a state that she said she cared so much about, that she loved so much, and picked up shop and moved down to Texas, just completely abandoned Missouri. I tweeted at her and she blocked me. My most famous block on social media has been Valentina Gomez, because I tweeted at her and asked her why she abandoned Missouri to go and run in Texas instead, and she blocked me for that. So just a little bit about her. She made a tweet and she said that Charlie Kirk would have voted for her, and this account on Twitter said that there's nothing more distasteful than using a dead man to endorse your campaign. I completely agree. So overall, Valentina Gomez, crazy person. She claimed a planned endorsement from Trump was coming for her campaign that never came. She also claimed her voter registration was illegally removed and was under investigation by multiple federal agencies, making it illegal for me to cast my vote. So her registration was actually suspended because she was using an invalid P.O. box for her address, violating Texas law. And there's no evidence there were federal probes happening at all, right? So she's a liar. She's a crazed candidate. This is a woman who is calling everything fake and gay. She's in the Candace Owens. Honestly, the Candace Owens basket of deplorables. I'll take a Hillary Clinton term and say Candace Owens' basket of deplorables. It's kind of the same basket that Tucker Carlson is in, same basket that Nick Fuentes is in, same basket that, frankly, Megyn Kelly has got one foot in at this point. She wants to dive all the way in, but she's keeping one foot in and one foot out for the time being. So happy to see that Valentina Gomez did not win. What I'd really love her to go and do is I'd really love her to go and move to an even more conservative state than Texas. I'd like her to go move to Mississippi and run for city council in one of their parishes. I think that would be great. Does Mississippi a parish state? Maybe is Louisiana a parish state? I'd love her to move to Louisiana and run for a city council seat. That way she can lose in a federal, a state, and a local election. I think that would be just fantastic. So anyways, that's happened. In other news, there are some other primaries that happened in Texas. So Texas Senator John Cornyn and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton are moving on to a runoff election to see who will take the Republican nomination. I'd be happy for Ken Paxton to take the election. I've heard him speak a few times. I think he would be the upstanding candidate for U.S. Senate. And John Cornyn's been around for a while at this point. I think it's time for him to take a retirement and let's get a younger guy into the seat who has a little bit more energy. Also, James Tallarico beat out Jasmine Crockett for the Democrat Senate primary. Can you believe it? I'm honestly astonished that a white man beat out a black woman in the Texas Democrat primary. I guess it truly shows that Democrats are not as progressive as they'd like to say that they are. Goodbye, Jasmine Crockpot. It was nice knowing ya, and your humongous fake eyelashes, and your long talon nails. Happy to see you go. Regardless of how you feel about James Tallarico, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. That's how I'm pronouncing it. I think we can all agree that America won with getting Jasmine Crockpot out of Congress. America's a little bit better off because of it. Lastly, Dan Crenshaw also lost his election. Sayonara, Dan Crenshaw. He will not be making his way back to DC. Mr. Eye Patch McCain, as we would like to call him in the Republican Party here. Not really a real conservative. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't respect him for being a service member. I absolutely do. But as a politician, not America's best choice. Not America's best choice. So with that, folks, kind of brings us to the end of our show. We talked about so much today. We covered so much. I hope you enjoyed this show. I know that I did. We'll be seeing you next Friday in our next episode of the Nathan Hale Show. If you have questions or comments about this show, please tweet at me. If you're not already following me on all social media platforms, you can do so. If you prefer to watch this show on YouTube, Rumble, or X, those are all available platforms for you when the show comes out. For some reason, it doesn't seem like X is keeping the video feeds anymore of the show. You can only catch it if it's live, in fact, happening. But if you miss a show and you want to go back and watch it, you can always watch on YouTube or Rumble. They'll always be there until YouTube decides to take me out and put me in the political corner of the internet. Go and make me stand in the corner of the room and think about all the things that I've done. But with that, I've been Nathan Hale. This is the Nathan Hale Show. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll be back here next Friday with another great episode. Until then, have a great rest of your week. Bye.